And now, from Nashville Public Television's Studio A, celebrating authors, literature, and ideas for more than 3 decades, this is A Word on Words with John Siegenthaler.
Hello, I'm John Siegenthaler. Welcome once again to A Word on Words. My guest today is Carson Morton. He's a published playwright, screenwriter, songwriter, musician, now an author. Here today with his first novel, Stealing Mona Lisa. It is historical fiction, loosely based on the true story of the theft of the world's greatest painting, 1911. Novel set in early 20th century Paris. Welcome to Word on Words.
Thank you very much.
It's great to have you here to talk about Stealing Mona Lisa. As you say, Mona Lisa was stolen, but not by your characters, at least as far as I know.
Well, actually one of the characters, because the actual story is it's really very simple. A former employee of the Louvre, Vincenzo Peruggia, an Italian.
They took it away from my native Italy. I'm going to get it and take it back.
He thought it had been stolen by Napoleon,
yeah,
and he thought it should be returned to Italy. And so he hid in a broom closet overnight. And when the next morning, when the Louvre opened, it was actually closed for cleaning. But he came out and he basically took it off the wall, stuck it under his workman's blouse, and walked out. And actually put it in his underwear drawer for 2 years before trying to return it to Italy, where he returned it to the Uffizi Gallery to return it to its rightful home. But he wanted a little compensation for his trouble.
Sure.
He ended up in prison, but actually got off pretty lightly because he was viewed by the Italian people as sort of a misguided patriot.
Where does Eduardo de Valfierno. Eduardo de Valfierno,
yes,
the Marquis.
Well, around this story, this rather simple story, grew up some mythology, and one was that the whole thing had been set up by a mastermind, one Eduardo de Valfierno, an Argentinian, in order to sell perfect forgeries, multiple forgeries, to American robber barons.
And when you say multiple forgeries, you don't just mean multiple authors. You mean sometimes multiple forgeries of the same author.
Yes. Well,
I mean, let's have 6 copies of the Mona Lisa instead
indeed.
of just one.
Why just sell one?
That's right.
And
you got all these robber barons up there in the United States who are waiting to be plucked. Let's pluck them.
And he's done this before. But never on this scale. And I just thought it was an interesting character to combine the mythologies around the theft with the actual person who took it from the wall, and combine them into this story.
Let's talk about the team in the story. First of all, there is a young man who, in effect, saved Eduardo's life.
Right, Emile. Yes, Emile was a Paris street urchin who was basically found on the streets of Paris by Valfierno and brought up by him. But as you find out in the story, it was really the street urchin that saved Valfierno.
And then there is this young woman, and she is the greatest pickpocket I ever heard of. I mean, she bumps into you, and before you know it, your wallet's gone. She's plucked your passport. She's taken away your pocket watch. Everything but your underwear. I'll tell you, she is phenomenal.
Julia, yes, she's an American, a young American woman who is a very talented pickpocket, and actually picks Valfierno's pocket, which is how he discovers her. And she comes very much in handy in this scheme to steal the Mona Lisa.
Let's talk about your robber baron. I mean, he is one of many. Yes. But he is, boy, he's greedy and mean-spirited and tough on his wife. Where's he come from? You ever know anybody like
Do I know anybody?
Joshua Hart?
I would have to say no. I haven't personally known someone like that, but I did some reading up on these powerful men, these great robber barons of the late 19th century, and I imagine that they would want to. They'd have all this money. There was no income tax, and they would want to collect things, and Joshua Hart likes to collect art for his own purposes, and he also likes to collect. He basically collected his young wife.
Eduardo steals a number of paintings. Most of them are not really stolen paintings; they're stolen copies.
Well, he makes it appear that he steals them.
And they think they've got the real thing.
Yes.
And Joshua Hart has this his own little private cellar gallery. And he goes down and really sort of gets his kicks looking at all the art that Eduardo has stolen from him. And he's not really aware that he's looking at copies. He thinks he's got it all.
Well, yes, and he can't really, because what Valvierno does is he makes it appear that he steals a painting, and then he tells his marks that all these great museums in the world have copies ready to put up at a moment's notice because they still want people to come.
So we steal it, they'll put up the copy tomorrow.
Right.
So just make your mark right here on the back.
Yes,
so
indeed.
you're making your mark on a copy.
Well,
and
right. He has a whole scheme of doing these, but the Mona Lisa is a whole different.
She is. She is what every one of these robber baron thieves would love to have, the Mona Lisa, and Eduardo will get it for as many of them as will plunk down the money.
Yes, and what I found interesting was, I mean, now we think of the Mona Lisa as the most famous painting in the world, which it certainly is, but it was the actual theft in 1911 which contributed to its fame, because it seemed incredible that this painting, and it just became world news and big news in the United States. And that really contributed to it being so famous today.
So you tell the story by having Eduardo on his deathbed.
Right.
And journalist comes to see him, and we just get a little glimmer of the introduction. Hargreaves goes in to see him, and we don't hear from Hargreaves again till almost the end of the book. The thrust of the story is Eduardo telling his story, but it's told in narrative form, so you reach out and grab us, pull us into a story, and we really don't understand that Eduardo is telling the story because you tell it so well.
Well, thank you. Actually, a reviewer pointed out that this framing device was like a frame on a painting, which, in retrospect...
That's a great metaphor.
I know. So now, I mean, I really should adopt that and saying that I planned to do that. But when I read that, I said, wow, that's good. I never even thought of that. But, you know, a frame, an interesting frame, because the frames on these old paintings were works of art in themselves.
Joshua Hart has a beautiful wife, and from the moment that Eduardo meets her, I get a sense that there's a spark of romance there. It's a glance, or maybe a stare, maybe a glare even. Not much more than that.
No.
But I know from that point on. Did you know you were letting me in on a romantic affair that would go on for
yes,
a long period?
Well, every main character protagonist needs a you know, they need a reason to sort of go through the story, and I like it when the object, obviously the first object that he's going after is the Mona Lisa itself, is for the object of what they're going after to change at some point, and slowly he becomes more interested, even though he doesn't want to admit it himself, in something else, which is
her.
Yes, you know, and I think
a lady with a smile sometimes.
Yes, indeed. And so I wanted to sort of plant that, but not be too obvious about it. And because he's a character who never mixes business with pleasure.
It's a great mystery story. Talk to me a little bit about how it is to do the research and the writing of a story set in another time. I mean, you have the historical piece of the actual theft, the effort to get it back, Perugia's mistake, and but it's not as if you were writing about somebody going to the Louvre in this time.
No.
To try it all over again. I mean, you really have to sort of go back into history and creating the theft and building it around the theft. You have to create the environment of the time.
Indeed, and to do that, well, it's nice to Paris is a city, of course, which still appears very old in a lot of ways, and everything is basically where it was. And I had actually written a large part of the book before I went to Paris for the first time. And I visited all my locations, and I was very pleased that most of them I got right. But one was interesting in that when I was in the Louvre, and they've moved the Mona Lisa now. It used to be in one room on the wall. Now it's in its own freestanding wall, bulletproof glass, and everything else. But when I went to where it used to be, I realized that I had the thieves leaving the museum in the wrong direction, going out the wrong side. I said, no, of course they'd go down here to the river.
Sure.
So that kind of thing was very helpful. And I found an incredible book about a little-known English artist named Mortimer Menpes. And he spent a year in Paris in around 1900 painting street scenes. And he didn't paint the Eiffel Tower, he didn't paint the river, he just painted street scenes. And they're so evocative that I sort of immersed myself in this book. And so I could see what the street scenes looked like. And then a bit further research from there. And I was able, through this other book, to immerse myself in, or to try to immerse myself in the Paris of the time. Which was extremely helpful.
For those of you who are just joining us, I'm talking with Carson Morton about his book, Stealing Mona Lisa, and Mona Lisa was indeed stolen. Let's talk about the romance. Let's talk about this art thief. She knows. Hart's wife knows that he is buying stolen paintings,
Yes.
Masterpieces, and she knows that Eduardo, that's his business. She's married to a man she despises, who is this robber baron, purchaser of stolen art, stolen masterpieces. But she falls in love with the guy who scams him.
Yes. Well, I think she sees, she has begun to see herself as just part of her husband Hart's collection.
Ah, yes.
Another
great metaphor.
The bird in the gilded cage, so to speak. And she has a real motivation for staying with Hart, and that's her mother, who's had a stroke and can't really take care of herself, and Ellen has no money, and so she basically stays with Hart for her mother's sake. But when that's no longer an issue, I like the character because because it goes against, she's not a brave character to start with. And so it's very difficult for her to try to escape and to try to, I think, appeal to Val Fierno to help her. And I like the fact that they both, the whole story is about them not quite getting together.
No,
really
it is. That's exactly
communicating
right.
with
The
her-
spark,
with
you
each
do
other.
it, you know, you grab me with that spark the first time they look at each other. I mean, I know there is going to be something just down the road, so there's another encounter. And there it is again, and again, and again. And it takes so long to get there. And then Chloe, Ellen is on the way
Yes.
to sort of deliver herself
Right.
to Eduardo.
Mm-hmm.
And Chloe, I think that Chloe was a mean-spirited witch to do what she
Well, you
did.
have to have barriers in the way of things. You know, just when you think it's going to go right.
Oh,
you have to put something in their way.
After being disappointed, teased and teased and teased. I mean, I think we're right there. I mean, she has finally gone out of her way, Ellen has, to come to him, to find him,
Right.
to seek him out. And there she is ready to, I mean, we're finally going to have a little fire where there have been sparks. And she walks up and Chloe gives Eduardo a kiss.
Right.
And, I mean, he just turned chilly.
Well, yes, but I think, and of course, that's for me, what makes a story, a character want something, and every time they try to get it, they're thwarted. I mean, it wouldn't be much of a story if they got what they wanted right away. So I tried to stretch that out throughout the whole story to give it the tension, the character tension, to complement the fact that Mona Lisa is still out there, and there are different characters who want it for different reasons, and so I had great fun sort of playing with those two characters and not quite letting them get together.
And you create great fun for us as readers. You knew when you started you were writing a thriller, a mystery.
Yes. Oh, definitely. I like an involving plot where you're not really sure where things are going, and even though I like to character, that's always a challenge for me to combine character with plot. You know, they have to intertwine in the right way, and that's always a tricky thing to do.
You know, the time's just flown by, and we have about 4.5 minutes left.
Okay.
And nobody on this program in 40 years, except Marshall Chapman, has ever entertained us with a song. And I want to tell you, our viewers, you're about to be entertained with a song that is very close to the theme of the stealing of Mona Lisa.
Well, yes. It's basically a song about art forgery. I've got Picassos and Rembrandts on my wall. Too many masters to remember them all. Renoir, Matisse, Van Gogh, to mention just a few. All that I'm missing is you. My art collection is not to be missed, but your affection is still on my most wanted list. I've got the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel too. All that I'm missing is you. The Louvre Museum, the Guggenheim et al. Can't hold a candle to what's hanging on my wall. Georgia O'Keeffe, Gauguin, and Jackson Pollock too. All that I'm missing is you. I can't be sure fate will play out its part until your portrait is on the wall inside my heart. The Mona Lisa will be arriving soon. All that I'm missing is you. Dogs playing poker, motel art has its charm. Venus de Milo, I've even got her arms. From Starry Night to Andy Warhol's Campbell's soup, all that I'm missing is you. My whole collection's nothing but fakes, I confess. But what a selection, and you get 'em for a whole lot less. But when it comes to love, a copy just won't do. All that I'm missing is, I miss your kiss and miss. All that I'm missing is you.
That's terrific. That's terrific, and it is so close to the story of stealing Mona Lisa.
Well, I actually wrote that.
You know, he's attracted, but he's also very nervous about getting in her way and trying to do what. I mean, his head's telling him one thing, his heart's telling him something
Well,
else.
I think so, yes. I mean, he's lived his whole life very, very strictly and never, you really don't find much out about the character.
Nobody gets in there to that life except Emile.
You only see what he does at the moment.
Yes.
And even though he finds himself attracted to her and sympathetic for her situation, he knows that it would be his undoing to make a move to express his feelings to her for a multitude of reasons. And he's right the way it sort of turns out.
You know, you're so multi-talented. I just read the litany of writing, screenwriter, songwriter, now a novelist, thriller. How was this experience, writing this piece of fiction in just the narrative form as it emerged?
Well, it was very important to me because I had written some screenplays. I had worked in Hollywood and writing for producers, screenplays that were never really produced, and some work for television. And this book actually started out as a screenplay. It was a screenplay idea, and I had worked on it. And then I finally realized it would be very expensive to make because of the period piece,
Sure.
and there's a big event at the end which would be cost a lot of money to film. And I decided finally that if I turned it into a novel, I'd be basically producing it myself. It would be a finished product, and so that's what I sort of set out to do: make, perhaps even think of the movie in a book. In other words, an experience that was complete, that you didn't have to imagine something. It was complete. And I had great fun, especially you have to flesh things out and characters, and you can take little tangents here and there. I love to bring in a little minor character like the art student who discovers that the painting is missing.
Right.
And I've just spent a little time with them too.
The other thing you do, I think, that is important to the story, you may not realize it as a reader as you go through, but there are people who are showing up there in the plot who really lived once, or at least you have given your characters the names of people. Perugia is only one. I mean, as I already mentioned Picasso and how he suddenly comes into the whole story. But